Yo friends, so what's all this? This is the ComMarker B6 60 watt MOPA fiber laser. I'm running a bit behind and I apologize to ComMarker. I was going to do the review back when they sent me a prototype of the B6 and well, I broke it. Sorry guys. But that's not too bad because there was a number of things that I found with the prototype that I talked to ComMarker about, and they made some changes to for the production edition. Not everything, and that's okay, but enough that I think, yeah, it's pretty good. So this B6 is not my first ComMarker machine, not even close. A couple years ago I bought the B3 30 watt fiber laser, and I was really happy with it, and I ended up buying their Q1 and Q2, which are little galvo lasers. The Q1 is the blue laser, it's a 10 watt, and the Q2 is an IR 2 watt. And still today, as far as I'm aware, those little guys are the only ones of their type that are actually used like real galvos in light burn. I later then bought a 30 watt CO2 galvo with an RF tube. And so I've been around ComMarker quite a bit. And especially since it's only semi-recently I found out how to actually pronounce their name, I might actually mispronounce it. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, so here we are with the B6. What's different in the B6 compared to, say, any of my other machines? First up is that the B6 has both a manual lift right here, so you can adjust up and down, as well as electric. So you control that here through the screen up here on the top. It also has an autofocus. So the way the autofocus works is, if you see this red dot down here at the bottom, you set your little item under there, whatever it is you're going to work on. So let's say we're going to do this coin. We hit the auto button and it will automatically adjust the Z to match that height. Now the other nifty thing is maybe you don't really like where it's set, or maybe you change your lenses, or you're doing something else. This can actually be changed. There's a little gear icon up in the corner. You can set it manually, you can set it, but basically do the focus by yourself and then say, hey, go out there and read what the focus is and save that, and that's my new focus level. So that is actually kind of nifty. The one thing that I personally did not like about this entire setup is where the spot is. You can probably tell I'm one of those people, I like to use the center of my area. So every time I set anything up, it's always going to be in the center. And here, this guy's way off over here. That doesn't really make me happy. That's one of the things that they didn't change that I really wish they would have. Is it a huge deal? Absolutely not. It's just my workflow and how I prefer to handle things. But the focus itself, it actually works really well. Next thing, in terms of fiber lasers, the B6 is actually significantly smaller than my older B3, and also smaller than, well, both my CO2 Galvo and my 5 watt UV from Hayocean. So how did they do that? How did they squeeze the MOPA in? Basically, the bottom piece is pretty much all the source. So the laser source is down under there, the power supply for it there. They saved a little bit of area, but they moved the stepper driver for rotaries out to an external box, which some people aren't going to like because it takes up another thing to hang out over here. Personally, I do like it because I like to change out which rotary I'm going to use, and getting at the stepper driver to change the steppings, change the current that's going to be running through it and whatnot. On my older B3, I had to remove the entire top, slide it over to the side, and put it in, and get at it, and then you reverse all this stuff. By having it in this little box, it's actually a whole lot easier. You just take out the front screws, it pops it out, you can get your dip switches, and there you go. Like I said, I personally like it. Some people are not going to be a fan of it, but, teach their own. One of the other things they had in the package that was not in my B30 or actually any of my other units. I had to make something very similar to this for my Q1 and Q2. In the box, they included this guy. So what is this? If you're doing a rotary, especially one of their stock size, like the D69 or the D80, you need more height than what this guy can handle. So what do? Well, they included the lift. So basically, you unbolt the tower, this guy goes in, gets bolted down, the tower gets bolted to this piece, and now you have an extra height for your rotary. Which, hey, great. I do appreciate that. Like I said, I had to make it for a couple of my other machines to get rotaries to work, and that was just something I had to work on. So other things you know about this guy. Well, you can kind of hear him now. He is a bit louder than my B3. Definitely not as loud as the CO2 or the Haoshin. Well, actually, that's not fair to the Haoshin. The Haoshin only gets loud when you're really using it and everything heats up because it has dynamic fans to spin up and down. That is one thing I do want to talk about in terms of the B6. The B6, at least the 60 watt MOPA, it is temperature sensitive. If you're going to have this out in your garage or something where it's 80 plus degrees, you're going to run into a problem. They did a good job trying to keep it a little bit quieter and trying to get enough airflow through. But my testing, once you hit about 80 degrees ambient temperature, you start losing the source. It just starts overheating. It's just way too compact. Even with all of the openings here in the sides and the grills to bring in the air, it's just not enough. So it is worth to consider depending on how you're going to be setting this up. The other piece they did is they set this up to be a two-piece. So this entire piece right here is one piece. The base is one piece. You can use the 4 screws to make them one, or you can completely, set it off to the side, put it wherever you want, which is really nice. My UV does that, and so I can just put the big tower down underneath. So this guy can go underneath. The cord that's in the back that has the fiber optic in it, that's got plenty of length to set it down on the ground, as up from well, the other part is at the tabletop. No problems. So it is kind of nifty. I need to put the screws back in here. I've been messing with mine too much, and I need to be a little careful. Some other people have been asking, what about this? It does have a little bit of wiggle, but generally it's pretty stable. Once I calibrated it, it's been fine. One of the changes they did make when we went from a prototype to production was the up and down movement. Right now, it is actually really smooth to move up and down. The original prototype, just before I got it, they reached out to me and like, oh, by the way, we put it all together in the prototypes, and we wanted to let you know, the Z-axis wobbled a lot, and we had to fix that. So just to let you know, we already know it's a problem. So for me, I think it's really smooth, compared to their littler Q1 and Q2s. It's on par with some of the other machines, say from an X tool or something along those lines, or one of the big manual moving ones. So I'm really, really happy with it. So let's see what else we got on this guy. Oh, of course we have an emergency. This time they skipped the key to be able to key up and key down. Personally, I'm happy with that. The first thing I did on my other ComMarker machines that had the key on it was hot wire that switch. Because, I'll probably lose it, let's be honest. I'll take it out to go do something and forget where it's at. But the emergency switch works rather well. Personally, I use this in Lightburn. No problems. Run through, do all the bits. The only other thing really to go on in terms of the mechanicals here is you do have a kind of a limited area in bed. So I have the larger lens, but if you wanted to expand, you do run out of room here, and here. Initially, one of the changes they made was this tower was actually all the way up here. So you were very limited here. And talking to them, I'm like, if somebody with 60 watts, they're going to want to open up and get a bigger work area. You guys really should move that tower back. And so they did. which now you can upgrade your lens to a slightly larger and take advantage of the higher power that's coming out of the 60 watts. All right, so that's really the machine. I mean, honestly, there isn't a whole lot more to talk about in terms of the mechanics and how it's set up. Overall, at least that piece, I'm really happy with it. So, it's a MOPA. So what can we do with that? Well, let's take a look. Alright, so everyone wants to know, well, what can you do with a fiber laser? So a lot of people, they focus on metal. And, well, there you go. That is their biggest thing. We can do a lot of metals and do them nicely. Unlike a lot of people that are coming from the diode world, the CO2 world, fibers are the metal thing. But you can do other things with them as well. For instance, here is a ceramic tile. And if we look really close, this is not a surface. This is actually going below. It's got a little bit of depth to it. This is just a kitchen tile coaster that's fooling around with. You can just see the level of detail that you can get in there. Is actually, it's pretty decent. Put a little bit of epoxy over it, clean it up, and there you go. So, metals, that's right, metals. Everyone wants to know about metals. Can it cut metal? Why, yes it can. Here's some 2mm aluminum, no problem. Here's brass coin, which, I cut the little heart out of. You get that little guy out of there. There we go. So he's just this little heart. In fact, I went through and grabbed some brass sheets and cut a whole bunch more hearts. You'll notice that there's a color to these guys. Here's brass, a bit discolored, admittedly, but you see these guys got like a pink over the back, because yes, you can color mark brass with this, not just stainless steel or titanium, but brass. So yes, color marking, that's one of the big things. Oh, I gotta have a MOPA to do color marking. No, you can get a much wider range of colors. Yes. Is it easier? It's a little different. All right, so if you're coming over from a diode or a CO2 laser, you've got two new variables to learn, not one. So normally you're working about speed and power. Now you're working about speed, power, frequency, and Q-pulse. Essentially, it's how Q-pulse is how long the laser stays on, and the frequency is how fast it switches on and off, or something along those lines. Feel free to look it up. But it is two more variables that you can play with to go and get colors. Does it do color? Yeah, it sure does. Here's a stainless steel card. You can see we got some colors going on. The little guy there, that is actually ComMarker's thing. But you can tell, and this is something to let you guys know, we have some slightly different colors. I see. What happened? Can you see it? How can you see how it warped? The heat on this one caused it to warp, and so my colors started changing a bit from the first guy. A nice blue here. Up here we got like a purple. Here we got the blue. That is one thing you need to pay attention to when you're doing these tests. The thickness of your material is important, because if you're heating up the metal and doing the annealing, which is exactly what we're doing by color marking, the metal can warp. So here's a really good one. So you can see we have all of these different colors in here. Very nice, yes, very nice, very pretty. But trying to replicate some of these is going to be really difficult. And why is that? Well, again, if you look at my sheet of steel here, it is rather warped from different work in doing the testing. In fact, if we look, let me catch this in the camera, right there, and you can see some about right here and about right here. Let me see if I can get. That's actually the lettering coming through from the tests on the front hand side. That's these guys. And that caused my whole sheet to warp. So trying to replicate some of these is difficult. And like I said, we're going to work with 4 different variables. We're going to work with speed, power, frequency, and Q pulse to get different colors. And it's one of the things that's very different from the diode and CO2 world is you can get into a specific module, get into a specific range. Say I want to get blue. You can get pretty much consistent right in the same range. It'll be somewhere along this path. What I found personally with the MOPA is it has really weird spots to get like a really good, let's say these guys up here, you know, to get the really solid blue or to get a really solid tan. Their frequency, Q pulse, speed, power were like in some really weird range. And this is actually closer to one of my typical tests. Then I started learning more about MOPAs and how to use them, and then we ended up over here. So for someone who is expecting just to to go drop down, go grab somebody's settings and use those to get a color, yeah, you're probably not going to, but you're going to need to experiment. You need to find this. Material consistency is very, very, very important. If your material isn't consistent, you can't expect consistent results. I showed you the warp on the cards. So what do we do with that? What we do with that is air assist. Helps keep the metal cool. And that will help keep it from warping. So the other thing people like to do with fiber lasers is, of course, coins. Everybody loves to do coins. So can we do coins on this bad boy? Well, heck yeah. Here's Nefertiti done in a steel coin or a zinc. I don't know. Here we did a little Christmas scene. Let's see if we can get a little focus on that. Looks pretty decent. We'll add a little back brass black on it to get a little depth and darkness. I can see wasn't a most wonderful coin because there's the electroplating you can see there poking through. So a little bit more in brass, So this one still needs a little bit of cleanup. Little skull. So I go, hey guys, how you doing? Down in again in a brass. This is one of my testers. You can see a failed one. This one actually I thought came out pretty nice. So nice that I decided to do an even bigger one. Say hey. There you go. And the quality you get is pretty good. To be perfectly honest with you, on a lot of levels I prefer my B3 to the B6. Though it's lower power and it takes longer by a significant amount, so far I'm still liking the results out of my B3 30 watt more than I do the B6. I'm going to try and drop down to a 70 millimeter lens and see if that changes my opinion on things. Maybe something is going on, and keep fooling with it to see what happens. So to answer the question, can you do coins? Yes you can. Can you cut metals? Yep, you can definitely cut your metals there. Can you do glass? Not really. It's not a fiber thing. Can you fuss with it and get it done? Yes. Can you do ceramic? Yes. Can you do slate tile? Yes, you can. You can do some rock and do some depth engraving in that too. That's effectively what this guy is stone and doing something of a 2.5D into it. So yes, you can do that too if you really wanted to. What other things I want to tell you about? Okay, yeah, you can do cards. I'm sure I've got a couple hanging around over here. Can you do photos on cards? Yep, sure can. That's pretty much the same stuff you can do with most fibers. Is there anything that's super duper stand out about the B6 other than the autofocus? Yeah, no. So a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not you want to work with ComMarker, or if you want to go with a different brand like Hoation. Price is going to come into it. What exactly is most important to you. Personally, I've had great service with them, and anything I've needed they come back with real quick. Are they a big name? No, they're not. So other notes that we want to talk about. So you talked about the switching over to the extra variables. Oh yeah, and if you're coming over from an X-Tool machine, you're already like 3 worlds behind. So EasyCAD or Lightburn, you can't use your XCS. You're going to have to learn how to use a professional program. And yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of a learning curve, struggle depending on what level you are. But this guy is definitely you can't copy somebody else's and expect to get the same results. A lot of this is working out what material you have and what you're going for, what your artwork is, and how to get it there. So, all right, there you have it. Let's take a look at our machine again right quick. Alright, so here's our B6. So again, is there any super killer feature in the B6 that makes this a gotta have? No, there isn't. Which that's okay. I think they threw in some really nice features that some other machines don't necessarily have. ComMarker tends to have a pretty decent price on what they offer, and they're pretty solid machines. Source. You always talk about the source. This is using a JPT. I know for sure because when I broke things with the other one, they had me using JPT software to try and diagnose and figure things out. It was also useful in figuring out that I was overheating the source that was inside, and from the ambient temperatures that are out there. But on the whole, I think it's a pretty good package. It's a solid machine. Just watch out for their handwriting in their manuals. Being around the Facebook groups, that is something that's popped up many times. I know for myself also, the first time I got a ComMarker, I had to go message their support team and say, hey, I can't read this number in terms of what is my focal distance supposed to be. In terms of how well calibrated it is, when you get the machine, it doesn't hurt to go back through and do a recalibration. But so far, out of all of my machines, my B3, the oldest one, is the only one that needed any actual nudging. In terms of getting the files you need and whatnot, everything's on the USB drive when they send it over, or it's supposed to be. If it's not, get in touch with them. Yeah, it's all up to you, folks. So that's a B6. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you to Seven over at ComMarker for believing in me and trusting me to take a look at your machine and give you guys some feedback. Thanks everyone. If you've got any questions, feel free to shoot them at me. Take care.